Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Prepare to embark on a journey into the human psyche with our dynamic duo.
I would like to start by introducing my friend, my colleague, and my business partner, Dr. Daniel Kessler, whose intellect is only matched by his wit. Or maybe it's his wit matched by his intellect. Sometimes I'm not sure.
Probably
Probably
neither.
both.
Probably neither. When I need a thoughtful voice of reasoning with a real great understanding of psychology, I go to Dr. MacBride for answers, which is why I'm happy to introduce her as my partner in Veritas and in this podcast. Gayle, looking forward to hearing your insights on all of this stuff.
If you've never visited internet forums, you might not know what Am I the Asshole is. In short, someone posts a scenario and asks readers, who's the asshole here? Dan and Gayle, neither of you have read this, so let's go. Today I have kind of an interesting one here. I'm definitely interested to hear what your take is. The poster titled it, Am I the Asshole for Taking My Necklace Back from My Mom? When I turned 10, my grandpa on my dad's side gave me a sapphire necklace. I'm in my early 20s now and have moved around a couple of times and eventually lost it. A couple of months ago, I was on FaceTime with my mom and saw her wearing the necklace. So I asked where she found it. She laughed at me and said that the necklace was hers and she found it laying around the house. She would not believe me when I said it was mine and a gift from my grandpa, telling me that he never bought jewelry for anyone and that the chain even turned colors, so obviously it was junk. I got increasingly frustrated that she wouldn't believe me and was unwilling to give it back to me as it had sentimental value to me and means nothing to her. I even tried to prove it by naming the brand inscribed on the back of the pendant, but she still said it was always her, even though she couldn't remember where she bought it or how she got it. For extra context, my mom and dad had a messy divorce, and she always hates my grandfather, who passed away less than a year ago. Now I get annoyed when I see her wearing it and avoid asking her again because I can't stand to argue with her over the necklace. I'm back at my mom's house now, and I saw it laying on the bathroom counter, so I grabbed it and put it in my suitcase.
Oh, man.
But I feel guilty knowing she will notice and ask me where it went, in which case I'd have to either lie or cause an argument by telling the truth.
Well, no sense in adding in not lying once you've stolen something. Wouldn't want to add lying to stealing. All right, go ahead.
And then she just ends by asking, am I the asshole for taking back my necklace?
Ooh, wow. This is layered. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume, although she doesn't exactly explicitly say it, the grandfather that bought the necklace for her, allegedly, according to her story, must have been related to her father and been on his side, because she mentions this messy divorce. And so I'm assuming it's not her father that made this purchase. Do you get that too, Dan?
Probably. How about that?
Probably, right? Like, I think that's a reasonable assumption to make for the rest of our discussion here. Yeah. And so this woman is positing that her own mother is going to screw her over out of this necklace because of the messy divorce.
I have a different take on this.
Okay.
And it doesn't lead us to great convo, I don't think. But like here's my thinking. People, like, memory is a funny thing. And there's all sorts of really great research into the reality that our memories suck way more than we think they do. And I suspect here that mom really believes that it's hers. Like, I don't think the daughter speculation is mom's doing this to screw me over because she's mad at so-and-so. I suspect mom really believes that that necklace was hers and that she's not trying to screw anyone over. She found it like, oh, my necklace, and put it on.
So then this brings up the interesting, like, I can totally go with that, right? So, okay, yeah. So mom believes it. And we've seen this, interestingly, even in clinical cases where you are trying to even assess someone's mental health and well-being, and you get a really funny result on a test. And then you have to sit back and go, we got this weird result, and it's maybe because this person genuinely believes it, and that comes through, and you're right, they just, everything else looks clean, even though from the outside the individual can't be right. Like that there's no
Right.
I'm looking for a word, I can't find it.
Right. There's no
Corroborating
mathematics,
data,
for lack of a better way.
Okay,
that could work out that way.
so if mom believes this, now we're saying that she's holding on to this necklace that the daughter clearly cares about, and the mother sees as cheap and throwaway, right? This chain is cheap, and it even turns colors. And yet I am going to stand on this and not let you have the necklace that you're clearly interested in.
Right. And this is where
I have a mother who has jewelry, and if I express some interest in it, once in a while, she'll be like, I don't wear these earrings very often. Why don't you go ahead and take them?
Oh, totally.
Right. So there's an interesting mother-daughter dynamic that's happening here.
There's a really interesting mother-daughter dynamic here that makes me curious. But also this reminds me of so many times when I'm working with a couple, and one member of the couple will describe an incident, and the other member will describe the same incident. You know where I'm going? The same incident. And it doesn't math out. Like there's no way it could have happened each way. And they tend to say, oh, you're making that up to their partner.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that is just the way their partner saw the event. Like they're both being honest.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They're both being honest, and they're both adamantly certain that their perception is exactly what happened. Even if you tell them, hey, memory is so bad that very often we can't even use it in court cases, right? Because it is so notoriously not only bad, but malleable.
Yes.
Right. We can change it.
If you'll forgive me, my favorite research did this, they like primed people with pictures of Bugs Bunny and stuff, and they sent them off to Walt Disney World, and they came back and said, hey, how many of you met Bugs Bunny while you were at Walt Disney World? And like 40%, so like 4 to 10 people said, oh yeah, I met Bugs Bunny for sure. And like there is 0% chance they could have met Bugs Bunny, because probably, it's a Warner Brothers character. He might be like he'd be dragged off on site if he showed up on a Disney property or worse. So clearly it didn't happen that way, but people will, and here's the part that's super fascinating, even when confronted by the fact that there's no way it could have had, people hold their beliefs. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? And they'll just be adamant. Well, yeah, I know that, it's not a Disney character, but I saw Bugs Bunny there. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally see that happening.
It's fascinating research. So I suspect that mom really, really believes that this is hers. But I why do you think she's clinging to this so much when she says it's not an important piece of jewelry?
Right. So, I do think, either way, if mom is stuck in this divorce dynamic, and that's what's happening, or mom really believes that the necklace is hers, now we have this dynamic of the daughter saying, I'm interested in this, and or this was mine, and mom holding firm and saying, no, I'm not going to share this with you. You can't have it. And I find that interesting. And then I also find what's interesting here in this relationship is the daughter sees no way forward except to take the necklace back. Right now, daughter is so invested in this. She is going to take it, 5-finger discount it for herself out of her mother's bathroom.
I mean, again, as we've talked about other times in discussing these situations, I want to know, as you mentioned, Gail, I want to know the backstory. Like, what is their relationship today? Because the reality, as you said, I pulled out in front of our oldest, we pulled out some jewelry that belonged to my mother, and she looked at that and went, I love that. I want that. And we're like, my wife and I are like, all right, take it out. And neither one of us wear this jewelry, and she wears it all the time, and it's wonderful, and it gives us great joy. And that's something special. That's what most parents would do in that situation, is go, this gives you great joy. Doesn't have any meaning to me, or I don't wear it. Have fun.
Yeah. So I think that it's an interesting choice. And I do begin to wonder if the daughter has glommed on to this necklace and the importance of it so much so now it starts to grow. I think sometimes when we hold a resentment about something that was kind of important becomes really important, and the thing that we perseverate on because it just grows and grows and grows, right? So I wonder how much of that is now happening to the extent where now she feels almost the right to take it back out of her mother's home.
And so that part, leaning into that part, like what the hell? Like,
Agreed.
I,
Agreed.
I get that, like, it's very reasonable, and we both agree that if we were the parent in question, we'd be like, all right, here's the necklace, whatever,
For sure.
have at it. But like, okay, so there's some issues with mom, but now daughter, like, she stole the necklace.
She did.
I mean, whether it's hers or not.
Right.
Like,
well, and okay, so wait, is it stealing? No, that's not the word I want. In one scenario, she's honest with the mom and says, I took it. In another scenario, she says, I don't know what happened. Right. Yeah, and I think there are different levels of egregiousness with each of them. Right. I mean, it's not okay to take something out of someone's home without permission, but it's also really bad to lie about it. Sure. I got nothing.
And they're not going to agree. I mean, they clearly don't agree on whose it is. And when I say she stole it, from the mother's perspective, she absolutely would have stolen it. From her own perspective, she just repatriated it.
Repatriated it.
She just like, oh, this was mine in the first place. I've simply returned it to its rightful owner,
right,
through the repatriation process. So, like,
well, and she believes that she lost it. So she's existed some number of years without it.
Right.
Believing that she lost it.
And even more so, like, this speaks to this certainly, as you mentioned before, speaks to the quality of the relationship, in that, like, this necklace, the sentimental value of this necklace is so great that I'm willing to further sacrifice my relationship with my mother over it.
Yeah.
Now, this all assumes that mom just honestly believes it's hers.
Yes.
And maybe that assumption isn't fair. I don't know. This is is it stealing?
I think it is. I mean, if we define stealing as taking without permission, she did not have permission to take the necklace, and it belonged in someone else's home. It was in her possession.
Yeah.
So whether she's repatriating that or stealing it, like, I think either way, I do find that particular piece of this situation problematic.
Yeah, I want to bring this mom and daughter in to our offices and say, hey, what's going on in your relationship? Like, let's have a conversation about the past few years and what's gone on since the divorce and how you're getting along, and do they want to fix this relationship? Because this, while she may have had the right, if we look at it a certain way, to take this necklace, if the real important thing here is their mother-daughter relationship, there's damage, even more damage being done here, and that's my biggest concern, more than the necklace itself, is how tainted this makes the relationship, and how much harm is brought forward.
Agreed.
So what did the internet say?
Well, before we do that, I mean, ultimately, where do you guys come down? Dan, if you have to pick from those categories, how would you answer the daughter?
So I'm gonna say that she's the asshole, and here's why. Whether she's entitled to the necklace or not, she's valuing that necklace over the relationship with mom, and she's doing something that's inherently deceitful and taking it behind her mother's back. And even though she may be entitled to it, it may be her possession. If the focus is a good relationship with mom, and the focus is on being honest with people we love, she's brought about more harm to the relationship. Now, mom might be being an asshole to some degree too, and I think she is, because she's really like, I'm not giving this up no matter what. But to answer the daughter's question, yeah, you're the asshole.
I hate to be boring about this, but I'm going to agree with my very learned colleague. The daughter's being an asshole here. You don't take something from someone's home without permission. I think that is egregious and will really damage the relationship with mom. And I think continues to put a wedge and a split between mom and the paternal side of this woman's family, because now they're arguing over this necklace that, came from the grandfather, allegedly. I do think the mom's being an asshole. I won't even just
Yeah.
I won't even say that softly. I think as a mother and as a daughter, I think this woman is being an asshole. If it doesn't mean anything to you and your child is expressing interest, there is no skin off your back. You just give it over, especially if she's excited to wear it. That's what you do. And I've experienced that as a daughter. I've experienced that as a daughter-in-law. I think just as a parent, if you have something that you think someone's going to get some good use out of and be interested in, you fork it over. And
Right.
And I do think to some extent you believe or try to find a possibility that someone who holds this memory of this necklace so firmly, I think I would have also leaned into that more as a parent, that, she clearly has very detailed memories. And even though I think it's mine, I might have been able to find a place where I go, your story sounds really plausible.
And that's one of the, thank you for bringing that up, because really what we're talking about here is that everyone who had the opportunity to assume positive intent failed to do that.
Yes,
the daughter failed
that
to
is
assume,
really well said. Thank you.
the daughter failed to assume that mom really believed it was hers. Mom failed to assume that the daughter really believed it was hers. Everyone had every opportunity to assume, and we want to assume positive intent in relationships. And ideally,
Absolutely.
this would have been the daughter said, "Hey, mom, I think that's mine," and the mom's like, "Well, I don't think it's yours. I think it's mine, but all right, you can have it." Or mom said, "Yes, no, it's mine," and the daughter said, "Okay, maybe I misremembered it too, or maybe you remember it differently, but let's talk about how you remember it." Like they had an opportunity to assume positive intent, and they both completely failed. So you convinced me now that we're going to go with everyone's shitty here.
Yeah, everyone is shitty here. And I think, oh, shoot, I had another thought about that. And now it's in my head. Yeah, everyone is shitty. No one's valuing the relationship. And, what's even more ironic is this necklace is emblematic of a relationship.
Right.
So they're arguing over something that represents a relationship, and they're ruining their relationship between the two of them over this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's being shitty.
All right, what did the internet say?
I was going to say, you're going to be shocked that the internet perhaps reacted in a unified direction, which is that the daughter is not the asshole.
What?
Because I know it
No,
was so
no,
overwhelming.
no.
They're super dumb.
That's no. And
in
the
fact,
moment any one of those commenters have something taken from their home that they believed was a possession of theirs, they would feel really differently. I can't imagine.
Well,
Wow.
let's
Okay,
hear the reason.
Go on.
So they were so overwhelmed.
Continue to interrupt you, though.
So in general, the responders were so overwhelmed by the idea that the mom, and they continued to use the word gaslighting, was gaslighting her about who owned the. I agree. I see your reactions. I think that's strong in the way that it's being phrased. I like the way you guys addressed it much more kindly, but that was their focus. Like, they assume that the daughter is right, and then therefore you're totally entitled to take your things back, was the direction. There was one person who said, yes, you're the asshole. You're stealing from your mom. And they were aggressively downvoted and piled upon by the internet.
Okay, wait. I do wonder. So we talk about these. How many comments are we talking about? Are we talking about 5 comments? Or are we talking about 500?
Oh, I'm guessing hundreds.
And then comments versus downvotes.
Well,
sure.
Our lovely host has to do some
our intrepid narrator
research.
is looking that up. I want to throw this out there because I think there's an opportunity, Dr. MacBride, for you and I to briefly address gaslighting.
Yes.
Because this term is absolutely important for people to understand, but it's gotten really bandied about in a bad way.
Yeah. If I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to call you a gaslighter.
Right. Gaslighting is the intentional effort to make someone think that they are, for lack of a better word, crazy for their relatively normal reaction. And that's you have more to say about this?
No, I don't. I found myself wondering, so does it, in order for it to be considered gaslighting, or someone to be a gaslighter, does it have to be a pattern, or is a one-off enough to?
I think you can gaslight in an individual situation, but really with gaslighting, it's not when two people have an honest difference of opinion about something, like, no, I remember it this way and my wife remembers it that way. So So because I tell her that, no, I remember differently than you do, I'm not, or she says, no, I remember it this way, it's definitely the way it happened. That's not gaslighting. That's a difference of opinion, a difference in perspective to be worked on. Gaslighting is when you intentionally tell someone that they're wrong, knowing that they're right, in order to make them feel like there's something wrong with them or they're crazy. And I think that that's a really important differentiation to make, because that word gets bandied about, and then any disagreement we have or two people have becomes, oh, you're gaslighting. No, it's not necessarily gaslighting just because you disagree.
I think it's hard to understand. It's hard to know whether or not gaslighting is occurring, because then there is some level of having to understand the intent of the person who's doing the gaslighting. So really, the only time we can actually figure it out for certain is if someone's like, yeah, I knew, and I said it because I just wanted to fuck with you and you know, and control you. And we don't get that very often. So I think this is why gaslighting has drifted the way that it has, where I just get to declare it as gaslighting if I think it's gaslighting, and it's kind of then bled into when we have a disagreement.
And from working with so many couples over the years, the percentage of time when someone is intentionally trying to harm their partner, intentionally trying to gaslight them, is really small.
Absolutely.
For the most part, we are trying to be honest with our partner and direct with our partner. We just see it so differently. And those differences feels like there's no way you could see it that way. So you must be gaslighting me, because it couldn't possibly be honestly the situation, remembering it this way. And they are.
Yeah. I actually find the bigger challenge in individual sessions with clients, because they'll say my partner is gaslighting me, and their perception will be that they see things the same way that the client does, and they're purposely saying something different. So they're ascribing that intent to say something different. And that's sometimes a bit more of a challenge to work with, because we know that the likelihood is low, but I think the frequency with which it gets reported is quite high.
Right. Exactly. So I don't think that's the case. Anyway, did you get the number, Michael?
Yeah. So ultimately there are 216 comments. And one of those was you're the asshole, but when I went back to try to find it, it has disappeared because it is below whatever threshold to show. So
got downvoted to hell is what happened.
Yeah.
So we totally disagree with the internet in this case. Love to hear.
I know.
That's great.
All right.
Well, thank you both for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscience of the internet forums. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black and white.
Truth can be stranger than fiction, so stay strange, stay true.
And we're gonna hit another one of these up next week. So come back and hear more, and let us know what you think about these. We'd love to hear your opinions.
Yeah, stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation about the seemingly random items in the therapist's office and the stories behind those objects.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing the show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
And as promised, here's the bonus conversation.
All right. So I'm going to just take this one because I am actually really curious. And you may have told me this, Dan, but I don't remember. As long as I've known you, in your office is a little wire sculpture that looks like bicycle wheels. It's not a full bicycle, but it's the bicycle wheels. You know of what I speak. So please tell me the story.
Oh, honestly, neighbor kid who's since moved away, now an adult, was like 11, and I was into biking. It was shortly after I moved, my wife and I moved here, and he just like made a wire bicycle and said, "Here you go." It was for, I don't even know what it was for. And he gave it to me, and I thought it was such a cool thing. I threw it in my office.
It's cute.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Just something
it always caught my eye.
a neighbor kid made when he was like 11 or 12 years old.
Cool.
Thanks so much for tuning in. See you again next week.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.